Silence. Not the kind of silence you find in a library or a church, but the heavy, suffocating silence of a rusted titan that has forgotten how to scream. Look at the scale of this machine. Bagger 288. 13,000 tons of German steel, cold and unresponsive. For 30 long years it has stood here, being slowly digested, cell by cell, by the very earth it was once designed to dominate. But the real story isn't just the rust, it's about us. Titan rebuilt. We are a $7 billion empire, built over decades of conquering the impossible. But today, that $7 billion is hanging by a single corroded thread. Every cent we own, every asset in our name, and our entire global reputation is now tied to this mountain of iron. If we fail to wake this giant, the math is simple and brutal. Titan rebuilt goes to zero. We won't just lose a contract, we will be erased from history. We are talking about 30 years of red tape, 30 years of shifting ownership, and 30 years of a rusted mountain that every engineer in Europe was too terrified to even approach. The wind doesn't just pass through this structure, it whistles through the hollow lattice mast like a funeral dirge for a king that refused to be buried. If you stand at the base and press your ear against the mean support pillar, you can hear the metal groaning, a haunting metallic weeping caused by decades of structural fatigue and thermal expansion. Look at the orange weeping from the joints. That's not just rust, that is the lifeblood of a titan that dried up under the relentless sun. Nature has claimed its territory here. Generations of birds have lived and died in the secondary hoppers. Thick green moss has claimed the main drive shafts, turning a masterpiece of engineering into a vertical swamp. Everyone was afraid of the cost, the insurance, and the sheer mechanical mystery of what lies inside. But today, the era of decay is officially over. We aren't here to count the rust spots. We are here to perform a miracle. Move your mind to the war room. The air here is thick enough to choke you, a cocktail of stale coffee, expensive tobacco, and the metallic tang of genuine high-stakes fear. They're calling this the suicide mission. Across a mahogany table that has seen the birth and death of billion-dollar empires, the board of directors is in a state of total high-octane collapse. They aren't talking about the glory of restoration. They're screaming about liability. They're obsessed with environmental lawsuits that could last 50 years, insurance premiums that could bankrupt a small nation, and the total financial annihilation of our parent company if even a single hydraulic bolt fails during the first lift. In the corner, the lead engineers sit like statues, their faces pale under the fluorescent lights. They've run the math 5,000 times. They've analyzed the stress reports until their eyes bled. Their verdict? A total death sentence for the timeline. They're demanding 4 years, minimum, just for a basic safe start restoration. 4 years of slow motion testing and cautious repairs. But the law has zero patience for the physics of metal fatigue. The government has handed down an ultimatum as cold and hard as the steel outside. 732 days, exactly 2 years to wake up a 13,000-ton monster that hasn't taken a breath in 3 decades. The clock on the wall isn't just ticking, it's a sledgehammer hitting the floor, counting down the seconds until our reputation is buried under this mountain of iron. The CEO stood by the floor-to-ceiling window for 20 minutes in total crushing silence. He ignored the colorful spreadsheets, the panicked memos, and the stacks of red-inked risk assessments piling up on his desk. He was looking at the legacy of this firm. When he finally turned around, his eyes were like flint, sharp, cold and utterly terrifying. If we walk away now, his voice a razor blade cutting through the noise, Titan Rebuilt dies with this machine. Our name isn't on a contract, it's welded to that rusted mast in the mud. He knew the wolves were at the door. Outside, every rival firm in the heavy mining world is circling like a pack of vultures, waiting for the first sign of our weakness, the first crack in our resolve. They want the headline, Titan Rebuilt collapses under the weight of Bagger 288. The insurers have their fingers on the trigger, ready to pull our funding and bury us in litigation at the first sign of a technical glitch. But then the unthinkable happened. The pen hit the paper with a definitive, bone-chilling strike. One signature, one moment of absolute madness. The countdown has begun. We aren't going into a repair shop. We're going into a war zone where gravity is the judge, physics is the enemy, and time is the executioner. We've just signed a blood pact with a ghost. Day 1. Our boots hit the freezing, thick mud of the site, and the reality of what we've done hits us like a physical blow. It's 1,000 times worse than the 4K drone footage or the satellite maps. Up close, Bagger 288 isn't just a machine, it's a landscape of decay and stagnation. The tracks, each 12 feet wide and made of hardened steel, aren't just stuck, they're molecularly fused to the earth by 30 years of tectonic pressure. Acid rain and chemical runoff have turned the high-grade lubricants into something harder than industrial granite. We sent a technician up to the main valve assembly. He tried to turn a simple manual override, a piece of steel that should have been indestructible. It snapped. Just like that. It snapped with a sound like a gunshot that echoed across the entire mining pit. A collective chill went through the crew. This isn't a mechanical repair anymore. This is the resurrection of a 12-story corpse that has no intention of coming back to life. As the sun sets on our first day, the realization is clear. The giant isn't just dead, it's actively fighting back against us. 729 days left, and right now, the giant is winning.